5 stupid things that get people into fights. So we're going to frame the discussion with road rage.
But it's relevant to any kind of social interaction that could escalate to a fight.
Keep watching. So the first thing is a sense of entitlement. You're driving somewhere, you think that your journey is more important than their journey. You're on the same road, you're traveling in the same direction, but why is your journey any more important than the other person?
What's the second thing?
The second thing is stereotyping people.
Case of assuming someone is something because they are X.
Because they dress a certain way, they behave a certain way, they speak a certain way, we stereotype them. What that does do, it leads to quick judgments. And those quick judgments actually are quite dangerous, but they can be quite volatile. They lead us into making decisions to escalate a situation that didn't need to be escalated.
And we do stereotype naturally, but it can cause a lot of trouble because when you do assume somebody based on a stereotype, it might get your back up, you might be more defensive, and then that can lead to an escalated situation.
Yeah, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You essentially think someone's going to behave a certain way, and you behave that way towards them, then you get it back. They mirror your behavior.
Absolutely, yeah. It's that attitude issue, isn't it? If you meet them with the attitude you assume they're going to have, they have it too, and all of a sudden it also proves you right in your head because they were what you thought they were, but they ultimately are responding to you. It's this issue of escalation, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it escalates completely out of control, and it gets people into fights. Third thing, you lack empathy.
Similarly to that idea of when we're entitled, we believe our journey is more important than other people. That lack of empathy is like, you're not realizing that other people who maybe are road raging against you, or they're in a situation unique to them that could be really problematic.
That person might be driving erratically because they are panicked. They're trying to get their child to the hospital. There could be many reasons why they're behaving the way they are.
But we don't assume that first and foremost. We go straight to this guy's an arse and he's trying to challenge me.
But empathy also relates to understanding people's perspective. If someone's arguing with you in an ego battle, if you are lacking an understanding that, for example, it's a hot day, they're stuck in their car, just like you, they can't go because there's a traffic jam, you're lacking empathy for their situation from their perspective.
Which is ironic because you're sharing the same situation, yet we still feel, because of this previously mentioned sense of entitlement, that we're different, even though we're all so universally the same.
So we lack the empathy, which basically escalates our emotions, which drives us closer towards a violent encounter.
So maybe it's good to practice checking your empathy. As you get into a situation where you feel somebody has tension, you can be like, okay, let's immediately assume the worst, in the sense that they are having a really rough day, or that they are in an emergency.
That's the whole skill behind verbal judo. I mean, a lot of people talk about that in self-defense and discuss this tactical communication where you learn how to speak to people. And part of verbal judo is actually using the tool of empathy. Try to repeat back what you hear. Try to engage with what they're saying. And that way you can de-escalate a potentially violent situation. The fourth one, and we've said this many times before, you're easily triggered. But pride plays a bigger part of this discussion.
Being easily triggered, we're talking about somebody does something to offend you, to challenge you or disrespect you, and you immediately are raged because of it. And it's the pride that takes you to that next level of escalating the encounter because you're not willing to let it go.
You don't want to back down. So you can imagine that you've got a sense of entitlement. You already feel that your journey is more important than their journey. You're stereotyping that person. And on top of that, you lack empathy for the situation. It's a cocktail for disaster.
Yeah, that pride is the thing you see people get into trouble for time and time again, because they've been offended, or worse, they've offended someone else, and when they're challenged with that situation, they're not willing to admit fault and apologise. They just will always take it to the fight.
Have you ever noticed with young guys driving cars, especially with their girlfriends?
Yeah, and in front of someone else, like a girlfriend, they are even less willing to let something go because it challenges your pride. It challenges your very being.
Exactly. Then your emotions are easily triggered.
So what's the final point? What's our fifth point?
You're sensitive and emotional.
These all tie in together, really. It's like one strand that can be pulled on somebody and just create a complete explosion, isn't it?
It does. But when we say sensitive and emotional, we mean hypersensitive. You basically take things literally to heart.
I can be hypersensitive. Even the tiniest thing sends me into a rage,
Exactly.
perhaps.
Exactly. Someone says something to you and you you're sensitive to it, you react against it.
And once you've let your emotions take control, it's very hard to regain that sense of composure and be reasonable. When someone's being hysterical, we often say they're completely unreasonable, and it's because they've lost control of themselves. They're being swept up by their emotions.
You add it to a cocktail of other factors, sense of entitlement, stereotypical thinking. All of these factors are going to enhance your hypersensitivity to what someone's saying to you.
So what can we do to address all of these different issues that tie in together so closely?
Firstly, don't drive your car.
Take the bus.
Take the bus.
And I guess meditate the entire time you're on the bus, basically. Become a Buddhist monk.
I think first of all is understand that people are people. Just like you, they can have bad days. And I usually say that your bad guy is a good guy having a bad day. So take into account that sometimes you can avoid confrontations by simply being empathetic, listening to what people say, and trying not to get your pride and your hypersensitivity and your sense of entitlement get the better of you.
Allowing for the fact that this person is obviously having a bad day in a difficult situation, and you don't need to make it worse. And unless they give you absolute reason to need to defend yourself physically, there's no need for you to engage and antagonize the situation. You can always aim to de-escalate, use your verbal judo, and just completely avoid the situation where possible.
Sometimes self-defense has very little to do with fighting. It has much more to do with preventing the situation in the first place. And the majority of situations will be ego battles that you'll deal with, and you can talk your way out of that. You don't need to fight, so don't. Thanks for watching.